Good evening and welcome to Meet the Candidates for the Utah House seats. This event is brought to you by the South Jordan Chamber of Commerce as well as the Glenmore Golf Club. My name is Brian Stein. I'm the President and CEO of the South Jordan Chamber. And I want to thank everyone in attendance as well as those that are watching on the live stream. Thank you for joining us for tonight's activity. Just a brief overview of how we're going to run the event. I will start by introducing the candidates. Then we'll do a Q&A for each candidate for 2 minutes. After Q&A is completed, each candidate will have 2 minutes to come back up and address the audience. After that, we'll follow that up with a short wrap-up. And I think, let's meet the candidates. All right, our first candidate is Sam Winkler, House District 42, Democrat. Born and raised in Utah, Sam Winkler grew up in a large mixed family of 7 sisters and 4 brothers. Sam is married to Amy, and together they have 3 children. They enjoy camping and fishing in our great state. Sam has served our community as a police officer for over 20 years and is currently the sergeant overseeing school resource officers, traffic unit, community, outreach, crossing guards, and serves as the public information officer. Sam graduated from Weber State University, magna cum laude in 2018, and has always had passion for serving the community. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Jordan, I asked you earlier.
Tusher.
Tusher, yes.
Jordan Tusher.
Jordan Tusher, House District 42, Republican. Jordan grew up in South Jordan, Utah. He graduated from Brigham Young University, cum laude, with a Bachelor of Arts degree, majoring in political science and philosophy. He then went on to graduate cum laude from J. Reuben Clark Law School at BYU. Jordan was admitted to the Utah Bar and U.S. Federal Court Bar in 2012 and was nominated and sworn into the United States Supreme Court Bar in 2015. He first served as state Republican delegate at the age of 17. Since then, he served many times as state and county delegate. Jordan met his wife, Aliona, while practicing law in Ukraine. And they are the parents of 3 adorable children. He and his family love to travel, work together in the yard, and attend sporting events. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ryan Bodwin, House District 42, United Utah Party. Ryan lives with his wife, Anika, and
Annika.
3... Annika? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm really messing up tonight. Annika, and 3 sons in South Jordan. Ryan has worked in a variety of tech roles as engineer, manager, and technical recruiter. Ryan currently serves as a member of the Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired Advisory Council, as well as the Governor's Committee on Employment for People with Disabilities, where he's an advocate for the blind community of Utah. Ryan holds a master's degree in international relations from the University of Warsaw, Poland, and is a Fulbright alumni. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
I've got this one, Scott.
Thank you.
Scott Bell, House District 47, Democrat. Scott and his wife, Jade, moved to Utah in 1994 for Kennecott. They have been resident of West Jordan for over 25 years. Their 2 grown children are proud West Jordan Jaguars and Utah Utes. Scott has wide experience and diverse insights. He's been a renter, homeowner, and landlord, a manager, employee, and business owner. He has lived in small towns, big cities, and remote locations around the world. He has been on both sides of the economic spectrum. Scott's an engineer. He believes in facts, data, and science, but his work around the world taught him that life is about more than facts. It's about people, opinions, and feelings. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Steve Christensen, House District 47. Christiansen, okay. No more. Steve and his wife are parents of 4 children and 6 grandchildren. As president of Kimberly-Clark, Brazil, and Kimberly-Clark, Peru, as president of a large education products distribution company, and as a former small business owner. Steve knows what it takes to create a prosperous economy that will benefit all. As your representative, he has supported issues that will keep Utah family-friendly, economically strong, and a protector for unalienable rights of life, liberty, and property. Steve enjoys broad support from colleagues in legislature, the mayors of West and South Jordan, members of the Jordan School District Board, minority community leaders, and the Utah Taxpayers Association. Steve believes a society thrives when based on integrity, personal responsibility, and compassion for all. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Emily Hayes, House District 50, Democrat. Emily lives in South Jordan with her husband Todd and dog Lucy. She graduated BYU in 2006 and moved back to Utah from Washington, D.C. in 2011. She saw there was a great economic opportunity that was beginning in Utah. During that time, she left her career to start a real estate company. She understands small business and the economic realities through her experience as a business owner and through helping her clients. She became involved in Utah politics in 2016 after finding out her friend was in a domestic violence situation. She lobbied for new laws that protect victims of domestic violence. She is running so she can sponsor and vote for impactful bills that will improve and potentially save Utah lives. Thank you, Emily. Susan Pulsa for House District 50, Republican. Susan and her husband, David, have lived in South Jordan for 21 years. She's taken an active part in the community, serving on many committees and boards, working to fulfill a personal goal to contribute to her community and make the world a better place. It has been her privilege to serve on the Jordan School Board and in the House of Representatives to bring needed changes to our community. Susan and David have 4 daughters and 20 grandchildren. She wants to ensure that they have an environment that is safe and an economy that allows them to prosper with opportunities to maximize their potential. She believes that government works best when the community works together to find solutions. Thank you, Susan. Catherine.
It's Vootay.
Vootay.
Yes, Vootay.
I should have got here earlier. House Democrat, House District 52 Democrat. Catherine is married to Kurt, and he lived in Harriman for 20 years. Their blended family includes 5 children, 1 cat, and their pug, Lizzie. She graduated from Weber State University in accounting and continued her education at the University of Nevada, Reno's Master Professional Accountancy program with an emphasis on taxation. She has 20-plus years in tax, accounting, and business management. She is also passionate about our community and Utah. Her family is directly impacted by increased housing costs, increasing costs for higher education, traffic congestion, poor air quality, and mental health, having lost her son Chandler to suicide in 2017. Catherine will put in time and effort to become a difference for our community. Thank you, Catherine. And Candace Perucci,
Got it.
House District 52 Republican. Candace is the youngest serving female legislator in the history of Utah and currently the youngest serving legislator. Representative Petrucci currently serves on the following committees: Health and Human Services, Government Operations, and Interim Higher Education Appropriations. Prior to her legislative service, Candace worked as Development Director for Sutherland Institute, a conservative think tank that focuses on faith, family, and free markets. Candace recently served as the Vice President of Professional Republican Women, and over the years has worked on presidential, congressional, and local campaigns. Candace received her bachelor's degree in political science with an emphasis in American government from the Utah Valley University and her master's degree in public administration from the University of Utah. Thank you, Candace.
Appreciate it.
All right, we are going to go to the Q&A section now. We will be starting with District 42 and starting with Sam Winkler. This question is to all candidates for District 42. Air quality is a continuous hot topic, but seems to gain little traction in a positive direction. What are your plans to improve the air quality in Utah?
Well, with regards to air quality, a little personal story, and we all wonder why it's important to us. Well, my wife and I lost a child 4 years ago during a bad winter inversion, and we had every test imaginable done to figure out what went wrong. And the only thing that the doctors could say was, it's the bad air quality. And the studies are out there to show that bad air can affect pregnant women and the babies in utero. So how can we have our American dreams and our families when the air quality is taking that away from us? So we really need to emphasize that, because you're right, it hasn't had a lot of traction lately, and it's affecting every one of us, whether we have a child or trying to have a child. So what we need to do is we need to look at smart building. We need to see if when we're building developments, and we've got the big one coming south of us, Olympia Hills, when we're building something like that, do we have smart building in mind? The buildings, are they up to a higher standard? This valley is a bowl, and things just don't go out of this bowl unless we get a good air day, a good wind. Do we have transportation, not just roads, but do we have buses and trains that are part of this at the beginning, not when it's needed or deemed necessary? Do we look at the commerce? Are we giving incentives to small businesses to come into these areas so we don't have to drive 10 miles to a grocery store, or there can be something local in our area that we can walk to and do our shopping so we don't have to rely on our cars and even transit at that point? I mean, I love Daybreak, and it's great design, but if you look at it, the commerce part hasn't come in as quickly as we hoped. So what's that doing? It's putting cars on the road, which adds to the air quality problems that we have. And then the traffic, as it gets bad. We need to look at all of these options when we're building and growth to ensure that we're moving and that we can get the traffic out there and have smart building, not just for houses, but for transportation also. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Jordan, I'll read the question one more time. Air quality is a continuous hot topic, but seems to gain little traction in a positive direction. What are your plans to improve the air quality in Utah?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And let me just start by thanking the South Jordan Chamber of Commerce. This is a great event. I'm really glad that we have something like this. It's such a unique election experience because we don't have the typical types of events like this that we could have. So this is great. We've got social distancing, we have masks. It's different than normal, but it still allows us to connect with voters and share ideas and really collaborate, I think, across these different races across the parties. So my name is Jordan Tusher, and if you had a chance, I'm looking here right to the east, and you can see the problems with the air quality that we have right now. A lot of that right now that we see comes from the California fires and the fires that we have on the west that we don't have a lot of control over. But there is a lot that we do have control over, and there are things that we can do individually to definitely reduce the amount of consumption that we have that's polluting our airs. What I would say is that we don't want to have government come in and mandate and tell us how we're going to reduce the amount of pollution in the air, right? There are things that government can do to incentivize people to make the right decisions. But whenever government kind of gets involved, we end up having more problems than we did in the first place. You know, there's a lot of externalities that they don't necessarily expect are going to happen when they come in and start mandating that we're going to make all these changes. You know, costs go up. The end result doesn't get there. Things are more expensive. And so the number one thing that we can do is individually look at our own footprint and see how we can reduce the amount of carbon emissions and such that we put into the environment to reduce the air. The other thing that I would like to see from a legislative perspective is looking at ways that we can incentivize employers to reduce the amount of commuting that we have. This summer, I think we all saw a reduction in the amount of air pollution that we had in the air. And it was a direct result of people working from home. You know, there weren't as many cars on the streets, and so our air was cleaner. And so if we can look at a legislature to give some tax breaks to companies that allow them on red burning days to stay home, or maybe come up with a permanent program where a percentage of their employees stay home rather than pollute our streets, I think that's a great solution. And then I think just piggybacking on what Sam said, one of the biggest issues that we have in our community is growth and making sure that we have responsible growth. And part of responsible growth is ensuring that our communities are built in such a way that they don't increase in the amount of pollution and such that we have. And so making sure we have mass transit there, making sure that we have more commercial development, and all of that is part of the picture that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Okay, Ryan, air quality is a continuous hot topic but seems to gain little traction in positive direction. What are your plans to improve the air quality in Utah?
Air quality is something that's very important to my family. I know that my son was hospitalized related to an issue with air quality, and I think it's one of the most important issues that we're facing right now. There's a lot of substantial things that we can do to make things better. One of the things that we can do is to ensure that the plans that are already in motion to move Utah away from coal power by 2030 actually comes to pass. It's one of the biggest sources of fine particulate pollution in our area. We also need to expand the availability of public transit with a particular focus on better last mile service so that public transport can actually be a reasonable alternative to having a second car for a lot of families. The state also can lead by example as our buildings come up for maintenance. They can make it a point to install solar, and for those departments where it makes sense, when they're making fleet purchases, to consider electric vehicles that can help reduce the amount of fine particulate pollution in the air. We can also make sure that we increase the amount of infrastructure available for charging electric vehicles, which will make it easier for people to have wider adoption for those types of vehicles. I think that's really critically important. Another thing that can be done to help address the air quality is to reconsider the way that we've been developing our cities. In many cases, we have a lot of bedroom communities with people commuting back into Salt Lake City. If we develop more commercial infrastructure in some of these outlying areas, we can have more people that are able to work and live in the same place, so they don't have to have a really long commute. They're not polluting as much into the air. So those are my suggestions on air quality.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, District 47, we'll start off with Scott. And Scott, the question is, mental health issues seem to be at an all-time high. How do you plan to combat these issues our community is facing?
This is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. I actually suffered from depression for about 14 years. And fortunately now I've been able to get better, and I've been better for several years. But I can tell you, people who have never experienced it and who either in their lives or personally or maybe someone they're close to or work with, they don't understand mental illness. It's not a character flaw, it's not a defect, it's just a mental illness. If you break your arm, you go to the doctor. It's the same way with mental illness. There are treatments, there are ways to get better. I think the first thing is that we need to recognize it. We need to recognize that mental illness is a problem, and it's particularly a problem, it can be a problem among younger people who are dealing with the stresses of puberty and high school and so on and so forth. So recognizing it is the first way that we need to combat it. Secondly, we need to intervene when necessary. And this is a difficult one because in intervening, someone has to take that step. Typically, it could be family, but it could be friends as well. But intervention is the second step there. And then the third step is to get treatment. Mental illness can be treated. I know for a fact that the spectrum of mental illness is broad. It can go from mild depression to manic depressive disorders, and they are completely different. They're completely different illnesses. So diagnosing the illness properly and then getting treatment is the way to solve mental illness. Treatment is available, and it is usually very effective. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Tiana. All right, Steve, same question. Mental health issues seem to be at an all-time high. How do you plan to combat these issues our community is facing?
Thank you. I'd first like to just thank the South Jordan Chamber for sponsoring this event. Really wonderful opportunity for all of us to be able to respond to some of these questions that are important to members of our communities. Like my running mate, Scott Bell, I also have in my family, not myself but my sister, depression. She became suicidal. It was a very scary and tough time for her shortly after the birth of one of her children. And also, as a member of the legislature, we had an opportunity not long ago to visit Salt Lake, one of the prisons in downtown Salt Lake City. I learned, as I understood before, but I learned firsthand, that about 80 to 90% of those who are in our prison systems here in the state of Utah are there because of either mental health, as you said, or a substance abuse problem, or both. The same kind of statistics applies to those who are homeless. Again, about 80 to 90% of people who are homeless they do deal with both either mental health or substance abuse issues. During this last general legislative session, there were a couple of very significant bills that were passed. I voted in favor of them to deal firsthand with these underlying issues. And these are underlying issues. Imagine if we could address substance abuse and mental health in the state of Utah on a relatively consistent basis. We would be able to eliminate a lot of the criminal activity and a lot of the homelessness. These two bills that were sponsored that introduced mobile units and crisis management community centers should go a long way to address this kind of an issue. As Scott mentioned, one thing that we need to acknowledge is that it is an illness and that we need to approach it aggressively and proactively. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, we're going to move on to District 50. Emily. Emily, do you have a plan other than high-density housing to help families get into homes in the rising cost market?
Oh, this is a really good question. So I deal with this on a day in and day out basis. I'm a realtor, and I have just having conversations all the time about how difficult it is for younger families or people that are just trying to enter the market to actually afford homes. It's a challenge here. We are in a landlocked state, and land is scarce. There are opportunities where we can move out to other areas. I know areas like Eagle Mountain, further down south, are building out right now. But I think unless we want to discourage people from moving in our state, it is definitely something we're going to have to contend with. I do think high-density housing is really the solution. I think that being able to give people opportunity to at least get in the market is essential for them to be able to move up in the market. And so I know you said outside of high density housing. Other than that, we do have a really great program. It's called Utah Housing. It's a zero down program in Utah, which has actually been really effective to be able to get people in the housing market with zero down. And so that's one that many of my clients have used that has been really wonderful. And yeah, it's a really hard one, and I don't think I have the answer, but it is something that's really important to me, affordable housing, to make sure people have a stable place to live, where their children have a stable place to live, where they can go to the same school for a long time. They're not renting and moving from place to place. So it's definitely an issue that I find is vital to attack right now. And I think subsidies and housing vouchers, that is something that we need to expand here. So that's something that I would definitely be in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Susan, do you have a plan other than high-density housing to help families get into homes in the rising cost market?
This is a very important issue, and it's one that the legislature has discussed in almost every session. We've talked about lots of different issues and ideas, but one thing that made me so excited is when I talked to a private individual who had a plan. I love it when our community, I love it when private industry weighs into these, and they can often find solutions that are better than what government can find. And this particular individual shared with me ways that they were trying to help lower income people actually, instead of renting, getting into houses. And it required help from banks and other financial institutions. And I am watching that closely because I think that if we can find some solutions that are not government sponsored, that's the best. The other thing that I've learned as we have talked in the legislature about this issue is that our communities across the state of Utah vary greatly. We have rural Utah, we have larger cities, we have smaller cities, and we have the cities right here in the Wasatch Front, as is South Jordan, and they're different. And sometimes when we look for solutions statewide to a problem like this, it's difficult to find the right solution. And I have a very strong conviction that local control and local decisions are the best. I've talked with the city leaders about this. In fact, I attend the city council meetings frequently, and there was a discussion just recently about zoning and some zoning issues that might help people get into houses. And so my feeling is that we need to help local control and local cities and counties look at these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. All right, we're going to move to District 52 with Catherine. Catherine, our state's population is growing at a rapid rate. What is your vision on handling continued growth of the area?
Wow, what a great question. And what a great opportunity for the state of Utah. We have consistently been growing, and our population is going to double here shortly, and we need to plan. We need to have a vision of what we look like in the future. We need to have a vision of what our state is supposed to be. I mean, what are we going to do? Are we going to include people? And are we going to make sure that we can get from place to place? Are we going to have a master plan between Salt Lake and Provo? And I think that that is what we need to do. We need to really look at what we want to look like, how we want to get people from here to there, how we want to have an economic boost from all of these people that will come here, and then what do we do about our education? What do we do about our air quality along the way? And all of these great questions that the candidates have been asking. It involves a comprehensive solution that as the legislature, we can work together in order to form those plans and to come up with a way to tackle them as we get through the next 20 to 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Tiana. Candace, our state's population is growing at a rapid rate. What is your vision on handling continued growth of the area?
Great, thank you. I think this is a really important question. I think one of the key issues that we're going to be discussing between now and 2050 and beyond. So I think Utah's in a really unique situation where we are economically. We have a quality of life where people love to come and play in our beautiful mountains. And for me, I think the priorities that we need to be looking at is our infrastructure and whether or not we're prepared for that. I know the southwest corner has absorbed a lot of the growth, and we aren't seeing our infrastructure and transportation keep up. And so I've met regularly with UTA and talking about what we can do. They've got great programs going with microtransit, potential BRT routes, and then also looking obviously at expanding that TRAX line. But finding those ways where we can have the transportation infrastructure in place. I also think this is an awesome opportunity for our rural Utahns and rural communities that aren't experiencing the same economic growth and wealth that we are along the Wasatch Front. We are so committed to filling the Wasatch Front and locating everyone in the same place. It's a beautiful place to live, but so are other counties in Utah. And I think if we've learned anything from COVID, it's how easy it is for companies to have people work from home. and that you don't have to live in South Jordan to work at a company in South Jordan. And so, for example, to the previous question on high density and mental health, I think that's something that's going to be interconnected with it. So right now, you see that Carbon County actually has the highest opioid use and the highest unemployment rate. And in those counties that really could use a jolt of economic development, I think this is a really fantastic opportunity for them and for us to look at unique ways and partner with the private sector in bringing those job centers to the west side and then down south and up north to be spread out the love for Utah. But I do think it's really important that we are preserving that quality of life that we all know and love by providing the transportation infrastructure that's needed and supporting responsible growth and local control. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. All right, we're going to move on to our next segment. This will be your turn for your open mic for 2 minutes. We're going to continue with the same order we had before, so if we can bring Sam up to do his 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. First, I want to thank the South Jordan Chamber and the Glenmore Golf Club for hosting us tonight. It's been an interesting year, and we appreciate the opportunity that you gave us to get out to reach to the voters. So why should you pick Sam Winkler for House District 42? Well, I'm the only candidate in House District 42 that was endorsed by the Jordan Education Association. So we talk about education, it's because of my work as a school resource officer, working with our students, our teachers, our administrators on problems within the schools. It's also because I've seen firsthand what we've seen going on in the schools, how our teachers are overworked. We ask them to do so much besides just teaching general education stuff. They have to be a moderator for kids in disagreements. They're a social worker for families in crisis, and they do so much more, getting our kids ready to teach STEM or to be in a STEM type job. When we talk criminal justice and law enforcement reform, I've been endorsed by I'm the only candidate in House District 42 to be endorsed by the Utah Fraternal Order of Police and the Salt Lake County Black Democratic Caucus. My 22 years of law enforcement has put me in a unique position with those two endorsements to address both criminal justice and law enforcement reform. And when we talk about better wages and we talk about better working conditions, I received the endorsement from the Utah AFL-CIO. That way we can work together to make sure Utahns are making an appropriate wage and have safe working conditions. But really, what sets me apart is my law enforcement experience. In my career, I have worked hand in hand with members of our community on issues that are important to them and problems that they see in their community, trying to find something without bending to political or outside pressures. And that's what I'll bring to the legislature. I will listen to both sides of an argument. I will weigh the evidence and make decisions that are best for my district without those outside influences from special interests. So I hope you give me some consideration, and I would appreciate your support. You can find more information about me on my website at vote4samwinkler.com. That's vote, the number 4samwinkler.com. Also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sam. Jordan, you are ready to roll for 2 minutes.
Awesome. I wish I was as tall as Sam here. No, thank you. Thank you to the Chamber. Thank you, Brian, for your leadership here and all those that made this event possible. And especially thank you to those that are here and those that are watching the live stream. It's just great to be able to connect in this way. As many of you know, I grew up in this area, just off of the 15th hole of the Glenmore Golf Course. So this is my territory. I went to school here, elementary school, middle school, high school. I love this community. It's the reason why I moved back here to raise my own family here. And the reason why I entered this race, I wanted to make sure that my 3 kids who are with me here, kind of running around, that they had the same opportunities and upbringing and community spirit that we had when I grew up here. And I think we've done a lot of good in Utah. There's been a lot of growth. I mean, I remember when I was a little kid here, we didn't have a grocery store in South Jordan, right? We had to go out to the Reams on 27th West and 90th South, and that was the closest place we could go. And so there's great benefits in the infrastructure and the new businesses and growth that we've had, but there are a lot of challenges that come with it. And I think that's the number one issue that we have to deal with in our community right now, and we need strong leadership for that. I'm the only candidate in this in my district that has been endorsed by Utahns for Responsible Growth, and that's because I understand where the issues need to be made, or where the decisions need to be made in this case. And that's something that I've committed to do, is to fight that when we're looking at all of the land that's going to be developed just west of here, that those decisions are made at the most local level of government possible. So we don't have the county coming in and making decisions, we don't have the state government coming in and making decisions, but it's the local leaders that can be responsible to the people here. Now, Republican leadership has done really great things in our state. We are the #1 best managed state in the nation. We see #1 employment right now. We see #1 in economic opportunity, and #1 in development of economics and job growth. And so it's those types of principles that I want to bring to the State House and represent our district with. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Ryan, your 2 minutes.
My name is Ryan Bodwin, and I'm running for the State House of Representatives. I chose to run because the state legislature has been very out of touch with what the voters of Utah really want. Over the last several years, voters approved ballot initiatives to legalize medical marijuana, expand Medicaid, and establish an independent redistricting commission. Immediately after the election, before the ink was dry on the ballots, the legislature took steps to change those propositions and watered them down to the point that they didn't really reflect what the voters of Utah had intended. Despite overwhelming public opposition to the regressive tax reform bill, the legislature chose to raise sales tax on food and tax on fuel, and only repealed this bill when their hand was forced by a ballot initiative to repeal this tax bill. It shouldn't take the threat of a ballot proposition to be able to get our legislators to actually listen to what we want. There are a lot of things in this state that there is wide bipartisan support for that we don't have. One example is term limits. 75% of people in Utah want term limits, and we still don't have them. I will fight for term limits for the state legislature, for all statewide executive offices, and the U.S. Congress. I will also push to adopt ranked choice voting in all elections in Utah so that people can vote for somebody who truly represents their values rather than just against the person that they fear the most. I also will fight to improve the funding situation for our public schools by pushing for a 6% increase to the weighted pupil unit. Right now, Utah is dead last in the United States for pure pupil spending in our schools, and many of our schools are dependent on donations for basic functioning, and I don't think that's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan, and District 42. We'll now move to District 47. Scott, the 2 minutes is yours.
Hi, my name is Scott Bell. I'm running for House District 47. Most of HD 47 is in West Jordan, but we have a little pocket of Midvale and a little pocket here in South Jordan. The pocket in South Jordan goes from 94 South to 98 South and from about 34th West to 4050 West. I ran in 2017 as a first-time no-name candidate, and I did very well. I got 47% of the vote. I chose to run because I found myself on the couch complaining about politics. And my daughter said to me, "Dad, you can't complain about politics if you're not going to get up and do something about it." So I said, okay, I will, and I did. I ran for office. I'm running because I believe you need a representative who listens to you. I believe you need a representative who will take you seriously. And I believe you deserve a representative who will not mess around with the choices that we make as a majority in our district. I'm quite active on Facebook and I have a website. It's scottbellforutah.com. My website has several proposals for clean air, clean energy, and so forth, as well as some other priorities. I keep my Facebook page more active to let you know what I'm thinking about, how I stand on various issues, and so forth. Right now, I'm running a series on the various proposed constitutional amendments that will be on the ballot this fall. The wording of the constitutional amendments is almost impossible to decipher if you're reading them for the first time on the ballot. So I give information on my website about the proposed constitutional amendments. I discuss them, and then I tell you how I feel about it and how I'm going to vote. I'm Scott Bell. I'm running to represent HD 47 in West Jordan, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Steve, 2 minutes is yours.
Thank you, and thank you, Scott. The first thing I want to say, my wife is a saint. She took on the responsibility of distributing not just herself, but a small volunteer army, 13,000 copies of this book. There is a copy of this book in the back for everybody that is here, and every household in my district has received one. If you really want to know how I feel about government, I encourage you to get a copy of this book and study it. I really want to focus as a legislator on strengthening our community regarding families. And there are many ways that we can strengthen families here in the state of Utah. Number one is the economy. I believe very strongly in the importance of a strong economy. As was already mentioned, 13 years in a row now, Utah has been voted as the #1 state in the union with the brightest economic outlook. I believe that's because it's a well-managed state. We believe in fiscally conservative principles here in this state. As a former president of both international and domestic businesses and my own business, I've learned those qualities, those traits, the requirements in order to make sure that we have sound fiscal policy that will benefit this state. Number two, we need strong and safe communities. Just this week, I presented a citation to the police chief and also the fire chief of the city of West Jordan. I have an appointment to do the same thing here in South Jordan, thanking them for their great service. We need strong, safe communities. Unfortunately, we've experienced in too many places around this country this summer just the opposite, and that is unfortunate. And then finally, we need strong education. Fortunately, we have funded education significantly over the last 5 years. Incoming teacher salaries are now competitive, but we still have a long ways to go. And then from an education standpoint, one of the biggest priorities for me is civics and U.S. history education. This is part of that overall objective, and we still have a long way to go to help everyone appreciate the wonderful country that we live in. Thank you. My name is Steve Christensen.
Thank you, Steve. Scott and Steve from District 47. We are now going to move to District 50. Emily, the 2 minutes is yours.
I'm Emily Hayes from District 50, and I would love to get your vote. I am passionate about protecting victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Our court systems are inherently biased and without a coordinated effort within the state to educate everyone who interacts with abuse victims on how abusers manipulate, many children end up in the custody of abusive parents. This has to stop. Utah prides itself on putting families first, and I truly believe in that motto, but I do not think we practice what we preach. To put families first, we must support families on a fundamental level. We need to make sure that we work towards providing stable and affordable housing, adequate nutrition, and health care. Utah has only fulfilled its family first mission when families' basic needs are being met and children are able to grow up in a stable environment. Our social programs should be built on each other, and there should never be a time where a person is punished by having all of their safety nets taken away just because they make $1 too much. We need graduated programs that help people get off social assistance rather than one that creates dependency. Our strategy needs to change from focusing on what is immediately in front of us to creating long-term plans to ensure that we have a healthier future for everyone. I don't want to waste taxpayer dollars, but I want to invest them. So we don't have to be dealing with a crisis in the future that ends up being much more costly. As your representative, I promise to be looking out for your best interest. I promise to listen to your feedback and vote in the way that you want me to. I promise to work with you to draft better legislation that helps bring a brighter future to you and your children. We might not have control over what happens in Washington, but we can make a difference here locally. I want to do that work with you together. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Susan, 2 minutes is yours.
Thank you. Representing you has been a humbling experience and one that I take very seriously. I have learned during my time that government works best when the community works together to find solutions. We can collaborate and compromise without compromising our issues, our values. This belief has influenced what I've done in the past and my plan for the future. This year, I worked with residents to pass legislation that restricts government, protects Century Farms from being taken by eminent domain for recreation purposes. And I worked with the community to put that together. I worked with many educators, parents, and members of the health community to pass legislation addressing the epidemic of underage vaping. And we worked together to pass this, and it was quality legislation. Finally, the members of the South Jordan City and also Jordan School District will testify to my commitment to local decision-making as a way of finding the best solutions to and practical solutions to unique problems. Secondly, I support a high-quality education system. This year I'm working on legislation that will reduce the amount of reports that schools and teachers have to put together. And that's taking a lot of time and money out of our classrooms. Third, strengthening family prosperity. I support budget policies that demonstrate fiscal restraint. And again, as a member of the school board, we put together a process working with the community that reduce the cost of school buildings by 20%. And lastly, quality of life. We've talked about transportation, air quality, and water needs, and these need to find good and unique situations. I look forward to working for you and with you. I'm Susan Pulsa. I would love your vote.
Thank you, Susan. That was Emily and Susan from District 50. Now move on to our last district, District 52. Catherine, 2 minutes is yours.
Thank you for having us all here today. This has been a great event, and I'd just love to hear all of the information from all of the candidates about really what their platforms are and what we think about for the future, because it's really important to me because I was born in Bountiful, Utah, and I have lived here really all of my life. I am a Utahn, and I love Utah, and I love my community. And what happened to me in 2017 was my son, he died by suicide, and I really began to see and take a look around me. It really had me take a look at what I needed to do personally, and I wanted to be involved. I believe that we have some significant issues that we need to address here in Utah. It affects my community, and it affects Utah as a whole. The first thing I'd like to talk about is healthcare. When I was laid off, we decided we were going to go on COBRA, and it was $1,200 a month. That's $14,000 a year. So I go out to Obamacare, Affordable Care. Guess what? Same price. You know, $14,000 a year. Okay, we need to do something about this. People who are laid off cannot afford to pay those costs. When I went to go get my prescription, $266 out of pocket. Okay, if I had to do that every single month, that's $5,000 a year. We need to do something about health care in our state. We also need to address mental health and mental health parity and ensure that we get people the resources they need. When I looked at Amendment G, which is on your ballot this year, Amendment G pulls out $680 million out of education. We really need to think about how we want to fund education. And that means that we need to think about how we reduce class size and we get more dollars into our classrooms. Lastly, I would just have to say, I'm just excited to be part of this entire political process. It's been a great opportunity for me to explore that. And I am Catherine Vootay. I am in District 52, and my website is www.vootay, V-O-U-T-A-Z, 2020.com, and I would appreciate your support with a lot of more issues out there and a lot more to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, representing District 52, Candace.
Thank you.
The minute is
So
yours.
I am Representative Candace Perucci. I represent Harriman, Riverton, and South Jordan in District 52. And I want to thank the South Jordan Chamber first for hosting it. It's been an unusual campaign season with a lot of Zoom calls, so I appreciate this hybrid format and the opportunity to speak. I ran and won the special election to replace Representative John Notwell nearly a year ago. And I actually grew up in this area. I went to Harriman Elementary, Fort Harriman Middle, and Riverton High. My roots are here. I'm a product of District 52, which is why my husband and I have chosen to live and raise our family here. I love our area, and I think the potential that it has. When I ran, I committed to working hard, being accessible, facilitating elevated dialogue, and focusing on community-driven solutions. I also feel like it's important that we're having bold conversations and tackling those tough conversations in our community. And as your representative, I have done just that. I committed to promoting local control and empowering cities and ran legislation specific to this. In addition, I have a proven record of fighting for Utah's families. I voted against the tax increase on food and gas. I also have the endorsement of Utahns for Responsible Growth, and again, will be an advocate for responsible growth in our community. And we'll continue to work with local community leaders for our infrastructure and transportation needs that we so desperately need. Really, I think what you've heard us all talk about is education. And I believe in empowering our teachers and parents in the education process. COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on our education system and also our minority communities, and I think we've really seen the disparities within the system that we need to work on. And we really need to increase funding, as we have done and continue to do so, and put the focus back on student learning. And then additionally, I'm focused on addressing mental health, suicide prevention, and improving resources for victims of domestic violence. I'm really grateful to have the endorsement of South Jordan Mayor Don Ramsey, and we have some unique challenges ahead of us, and I look forward to working with you and for you. I'm Candace Perucci, and I ask for your vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Candace. That was Catherine and Candace from District 52. All right, we are going to wrap this event up. I want to thank all of our candidates, first of all, for coming today. I know it is an odd situation here, but I really appreciate you guys coming and being part of this and letting everybody know what you are looking for. So thank you very much. I do want to address the importance of voting. We all know the times that we are in now, and it's important to be informed. That's why we wanted to bring everybody together. It's important to do your own research, and it's important to get out and vote. Vote mail-in ballots will be in our mailboxes October 13th.